Hi, welcome to another episode of Yummy Data Science. I'm continuing my series on Ggplot, and as a quick background, this is for the class I teach at UMass. So let's get to the right file. So in this episode today, we are going to be talking about bar charts, and we are going to be doing histograms. So let's go into RStudio, and I'm going to launch it by double-clicking on my R project file, which I have done already. And I've also opened up the script that I'm going to be showing you. And you can see that the first 1 through 26, that's some data transformation and data filtering. I'm filtering for three related DRGs. These are all neoplasms or cancer respiratory neoplasms with or without complicating conditions and major comorbidities. So let me quickly run this. So here is our data. It has 223 rows and we've got 3 DRGs. So one thing you might want to ask yourself is, well, what are my counts by DRG? How many inpatient admissions do I have by DRG? So that would be a simple bar graph. And to review the terminology or Ggplot, the first thing you want to tell Ggplot is what data set you want it to visualize. The second thing you want to tell Ggplot, think of it as a canvas or a blank sheet of paper. You want to tell it what's up and what is across. And in this case, because it's a bar graph, it doesn't really make sense to say what is up, because what's up is going to be the counts. What's across is the DRGs, so the various DRGs. And then you also want to tell Ggplot what is the geometric object that you want it to plot. And here we are saying it's a bar object. So, and this plus sign simply is adding another layer. Ggplot works in layers. So you tell it what data set you want. You give it the basic mapping, and then you're adding on layers. And we've added on one layer, which is the geom bar layer. So let me run that. And you will see the distribution of our data. So 180 has a little more than, 65. 181 is almost 80, and this is a little bit. So our data is pretty nicely distributed across these. Now I want to know what is the distribution of length of stay. Okay, that's what I'm curious about. When I looked at inpatient 2 and I looked at length of stay, I can, by eyeballing it, I can see that there's a lot around fives, and there are some tens, and there are some big values. But what I'd like to know is what is the distribution of length of stay. And where I'm going with this is that ultimately, by analyzing the distribution of it, by figuring out by doing a density plot to it, by figuring out what distribution it is it the normal distribution, is it any other distribution, we are gearing up, we can do hypothesis testing on it. So know your data, know the distribution of your data, so then you can create these statistical tests. So in order to do a histogram, you can see that I have in the aesthetic layer, I've mapped X as LOS and LOS continuous variable. So it's going to bin it. Okay. It cannot give you a histogram of a continuous variable without binning it. And binning it simply means that you create bins out of LOS. So 0 to 2, 2 to 4, 4 to 6, etc. And what I have done is I gave it a bin width of 2, which I think is appropriate for it. And a bin width, thought goes into it, because if you give it a very big amount or a low amount, you'll see that the results will be harder to interpret. So you want to be careful with this bin width and experiment with it. So let's run this. Now you can see here, this is a little hard to see, so I'm going to fix this in the next code set. This is length of stay of 10, and this is 5. So the bin that it's giving me is 3 to 5 right here. So 3 to 5 has a fair number, then 5 to 7 has the biggest one, you can see. And this is exactly what I want to fix. I want this to be nicely laid out so I can see what the bins are. So in the next code set, I have added in back to our scale option, scale x continuous. I'm saying you scale your x-axis by 0 to 31 and you do it by 2. So let's see what this does. It's going to just label it nicely. And here you go. So the first one, the first bin is 3 to 5, which is what we had talked about. So this makes it a little bit easier to see. Now, let me show you what the data would look like if the bin width were really large and it is hard to interpret. So in this case, bin width is 12. So here it's really hard to see where the data is. And here the bin width is so small. This is actually not so bad, but the bin width is 1. So finding a good bin width is good. And as a homework or an exercise on your own, let's try out, we use the X dimension, but let's try out plotting histograms for DRG, and I'm going to leave it as a homework for you to figure out how to alter the Ggplot code in order to do that. Thank you for listening. On to the next video.